For any of you who were here last time, you'll be more acquainted to my school, which sometimes I find hard to read. I should type it out, but it doesn't happen. So, here's my story. We all develop a short sentence about ourselves to give people upon meeting them for the first time, so that they can quickly judge us and put us in a certain box in their minds with a certain label. I would never do that, you say. I am open and accepting, and I take each individual as an individual. Not true. Whether you're completely open-minded, or even if you're completely open-minded, we have all been conditioned to do this, and we do this either consciously or unconsciously. I have found the importance of people's mental judgment boxes varies from where we are in the world at the time. In America, upon meeting someone, especially in the major cities, I would bet my little toe that you would be asked in the first few minutes what you did for a living. It's totally normal. It's totally normal. And it's almost as expected as usual formalities such as, hello, how are you? My old roommate and I, who had both moved to New York City around the same time, had great fun with this one. She, Lauren, a beautiful all-American girl next door type, both top athlete and enough degrees under her belt to intimidate the highest of scholars, would reply to this question with a deadpan face and in the most serious of tones and say, goat herder. And then would proceed to answer any goat herding questions. The fact that we lived in a very artistic New York downtown loft, and with not a goat in sight, would confuse the situation slightly even more. Once in Kenya, my driver asked me how many goats I was worth. I had no idea what the answer was. 3, was I selling myself short? 20, too much? He then proceeded to say that he had seen New York City on television, and there didn't seem much space for goats, so where did I keep mine in the city? I imagined my little marital herd lined up on my roof terrace of my loft, with Lauren faithfully tending to them all a few of them. When I moved to LA, I decided to be honest in my answer. I had moved there after studying at the best theatre school in New York City, with stars in my eyes and dreams of being the next Nicole Kidman. The only problem was, upon arrival, I decided I hated the whole Hollywood industry and had a perpetual fear of auditioning, therefore refused to do it. My boyfriend at the time was working for Warner Brothers. We would walk into dinners with his co-workers, and I felt them looking me up and down. Then they would smile quietly to themselves. I could almost hear their thoughts. Tall, blonde Australian ex-model, desperate want-to-be actress. They would silently project their judgment at me, satisfied that they'd been so easily able to put me into that mental box with that specific label. Barely would my arse have touched the seat before the inevitable question would come, and what do you do? Then they would ask, huge fake Hollywood smiles with blindingly white teeth and dead eyes, amused that in their mind I had already answered and been judged without speaking, and this is where my fun would begin. Even if you were doing absolutely nothing in Los Angeles, it's completely taboo to admit it, and people will go at great lengths, look busy, and sound very, very important. You would hear all the time, I'm in the middle of writing an incredible screenplay, it's amazing, or I'm auditioning for a hot new pilot, whatever to try and show that they had their finger on the Hollywood pulse and that they were very much in the scene. Keeping this in mind, I would smile sweetly and loudly declare, absolutely fucking nothing. At this, the table would go deadly silent and stare at me in absolute horror. You could have heard a pin drop. I had broken the rules that the Hollywood gave. They had mentally decided that I was a want-to-be Hollywood actress, and I would proceed to suck up to them shamelessly through dinner in hopes of getting some sort of small minor part that might get me somewhere. Freely admitting to doing something, freely admitting to doing nothing was an absolute outrage. I should be banished from the Hollywood set, maybe even the whole of California instantly. Without, just to further rile them with my tales of nothingness, I would go on to tell them that most days I would read, and then I would go hiking, spending hours gazing at Hollywoodites and giggling to myself at how much the owners looked too like their dogs. And if I was being somewhat adventurous, I would ride my little yellow scooter, which I only had because I can't drive, another shocking fact in LA, from the hills and down to Sunset, then along the beautiful PCH to Malibu, youthful, blissful nothingness. Hence, I didn't survive long in Hollywood, and if I tried to return, I would probably be instantly deported purely for the crime of refusing to play by the rules and to conform. London is a whole different bag of worms. Before moving here, I was visiting for a weekend and was at a party where a girl asked me within mere moments of our meeting where I'd gone to school. I wasn't sure. I was shocked and I wasn't sure how to answer. I had been brought up all around the world, and in high school I had changed schools every year, mostly due to naughtiness, I'll admit. Did she want me to go through every single school by school? Fuck, we'd be here all night. Another British favourite I have found is surnames. Now, my mother's surname is Power and my father's is Hanny. My parents split when I was very young, and my mother didn't exactly like my father, to put it mildly. So he was completely banished from all my official name documents. hence I was power. This was until at my grand old age of 15, where my father and I became best of friends, so I felt in honor of him I added his surname. I suppose I could have bumped my power part, but I'd always been Alex Power, and in dropping the power part, I felt this in the same phase as changing my name from Alex to Daisy, which, while I think Daisy is a wonderful name, it's just not my name. Sorry. Recently, at the end of a beautiful weekend at the countryside, as we were doing our farewells, someone's mother pulled me aside and said, "I'm terribly sorry, but I never caught your surname." That having my surname was to her something that the missing piece of the puzzle would suddenly answer. Her question about what her beloved son was doing with this wild blonde girl who seemed to be more interested in playing in the muddy pond with the children and the dogs than having civilized grown-up conversations with the grown-ups. I smiled to myself and gave it to her, knowing that if she raced with her twitching fingers to her computer to Google me, she would find that I'm completely ungoogleable. And that the only thing she would be able to find is a photo of my dog Penny at an art auction in New York City holding a bidding paddle in her paws. I wondered how this would add to her thoughts of me. The sentence that I have found myself using over the last few years upon meeting new people as well. I started school in Ibiza and I finished in Chile. This takes most people aback for a moment, and then I can almost see them put me in their mental blocks labelled strange and slightly mad.